With our beloved Jerry, the truck that's going to take us all the way around the world, back in the shop, and some side projects out of the way, it is time to jump headfirst into actually building stuff for the truck. This time, we're going to be starting from the top, or I should say, from the front. Every expedition truck needs a winch bumper, and I've been itching to bring an idea into reality. This is the Alex Build Stuff Show. Grab your shop ears and a bag of chips, and let's build! There were a lot of people who asked whether or not Jerry was going to get protection up front after we released our introduction video, and I'm happy to say, absolutely he will. There's a snowball's chance in hell this truck would get around the world without a custom-built bumper by me. The hardest part of these builds, though, is just getting started, but we'll be off to the races here pretty quickly. Well, how do you like them apples? We got some more lights in the shop, so I'm not friggin' trying to work in the back cave here. It's an exciting day because today, unlike last week, we're actually going to be doing some work on the truck. We're going to be building a bumper for it. I have been thinking for a very, very long time about the bumper that I want to build on the front of Jerry, and it was a few years ago that I found on Instagram K5 Junkie, and he has a K5 Blazer swapped with a Cummins 4BT in it, and he has a front bumper that was built by Rob Bonney, and it's a work of fabricating art. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a bumper, and it's beautiful. And so full disclosure, I'm going to copy Rob Bonney's design. So thank you very much, Rob, for being the artist that you are. Thank you, K5 Junkie, for posting that picture that I found that eventually led me to this point where I'm building one on the front of my OBS GM truck. So you'll see from many of my builds in the past, I'll put a few pictures here, I really like having low profile bumpers on my trucks. I like very little coverage. I like lightweight. I don't like the big underbite bumpers that hang super low. I want to make sure that this truck has the best approach angle that I can make for it. So we're going to be building very, very close to the front, very tucked in. I will want to put the winch as far back as possible, as close to my frame horns as possible for the best strength, and then just very small, what I want to call outriggers on the sides. There will be a bar up here to kind of guard the radiator. No like hoops over the eye or over the headlights. I don't really love that look. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really sick bumper once I'm done, and I'm really, really excited to get going on it. So first thing I'm going to do is just take off these tow hooks here. I'm going to square off these frame horns so that I can put bolts in the end, or like holes with nuts on the inside so that I can thread a bolt in, and then we're going to go from there. So let's get started. After 35 years of growing rust, the bolts holding the tow hooks on were not really willing to come out. Having left a big chunk of my tools with our van when we left Argentina, I had to run to the neighbor to get the proper tool for the job. There was absolutely no way I was getting these bolts out without a 2.5 foot breaker bar. Once the hooks had been removed, it was time to get into some CAD work, and by CAD I mean, of course, cardboard assisted design. This kind of work is going all the way back to kindergarten, tracing and cutting out shapes from paper, taping them back together, and repeating that continuously until you've got a shape you like. Now that I have checked the fitment is good, I trace the cardboard cutout onto some 1/8" steel plate, and then cut that out. Do this enough time with a bit of hot glue gun work and you'll eventually come out with a bumper. Don't believe me? I'll demonstrate just how it works in this video. Always make sure to clean off all the rust from wherever you plan to weld to. I tried many times as a far more stubborn and dumb younger man to weld the rust, and you know what? It just doesn't work that well. So all of you young fellows watching this, take note. Then it's back to cardboard to make the end cap. All right, well, now that we have the frame horns all capped, that means that we can move on to actually building the bumper. I will be building some kind of brackets or some way of bolting the winch in more into the frame horns. Just FYI, it's not just going to be these 4 holes. But this leads us to the next kind of big thing. I have a little bit of an announcement. I'm going to introduce the sponsor of this video, and it's a pretty big sponsor. So let's do that before we get building. This video is brought to you by Warren Winches. So I reached out to the guys at Warren, told them, hey, we're going to be doing a world tour and we want a winch that can fish us out of any sticky situation. And they said, sure, sounds like a rad project. And they sent this over to me. I wanted to go nice and classic looking, so I didn't go for any of like the Xeon or really fancy looking winches. So this is the M12000S winch. Comes with 100 feet of 3/8 synthetic rope. It's capable of a dead pull of 12,000 pounds. And I have to say thanks to my buddy Brian. Long ago, him and I were in Baja talking about winches and stuff. And he just casually mentioned that you should choose a winch that is about 1.5 times capable of pulling the weight of your vehicle. I know that doesn't quite make sense, but yeah, we got that classic look, the M series. I'm stoked. The reason I'm bringing it out now is I gotta measure the dimensions of it so that I can see whether or not it can be friggin' packed into here. Yeah.
I have had a lot of people ask me for the plans that I've made for a bumper or an interior build, which always makes me laugh to myself, because little do they know, this is how I build stuff. Piece by piece, for specific applications, a one-off of everything I build. Each piece of cardboard, the closest thing that I have to a plan, is thrown in the recycling shortly after. So needless to say, there are no plans.
Welcome to the Alex Struggles Show. Okay, very nice. That's success. Okay, so I've spent about an hour this morning just squaring these 2 pieces up. I've got them tacked in place so that as I continue to add pieces, it should stay square. It took a little bit. It's really hard to find square on a truck where there's not really a whole lot of flat surfaces, but yeah, we're on to the next kind of stage of the bumper build, which is getting the actual winch plate built and in place. I really want to try and make sure that I don't have to cut the grill. I really don't want to cut the grill, but if I need to get the winch in closer, I will do that. But I have an idea for how I can have the winch in place and not have to worry about it just extending out so far, but not also cut the grill. So let's get to work.
I'm a big fan of a few different sayings, some of which you've heard me say before. Phrases like, learn by doing, you don't know until you go, and it's not an adventure until something goes wrong. But one of my other favorites that I maybe don't speak as often is perfection is the enemy of progress. If you look close enough, you'll see that none of my stuff is perfect, and that's totally okay with me. There are fabricators in this world that everything they build is within a 1/16th of an inch, and I really admire those creators. But I don't aspire to attain perfection. I want to get my stuff built and back on the road as quickly as possible. So, if you notice something that looks off, it may very well be. But remember that the goal is for this build to be used, not to sit in the shop and not get done. This center section, like I said before, needs to be really strong. I'd usually use 1/4-inch plate for the winch, but when I went to the metal supplier, I couldn't get a small quantity in that thickness, so instead I bought 3/16 plate, and I'll reinforce it accordingly. Ideally, when I'm done with this bumper, I should be able to lift the truck straight up in the air, and the bumper won't pull apart.
I'd say that it's starting to look pretty sharp. Tomorrow I start the wings off to the side. I'll be building those out of 1/8-inch steel just to try and keep the weight reasonable on this thing. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turning out so far. It's pretty sharp. And I'm going to be putting kind of like a banding over here just to like fill this section out, make it look a bit thicker. And I got some speed holes down here, mainly just so I can access the bolts underneath, and maybe get a little bit of air up into the radiator. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And I'm back. It's a new day, time to start building. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, time to start building the wings. I'm building these from 1/8-inch plate. I could probably build them out of 3/16. I definitely have enough material, but in an effort to keep the overall weight of this truck down, I have to cut that weight out in a bunch of small ways instead of one big way. I think the 1/8-inch plate will be fine, we won't be pulling off of it, and it will remain stiff enough in the event that we need to push a tree or rock with it. But in terms of pushing rocks and trees, I'll try to make sure I don't do that at any kind of speed, if you get my meaning.
Last few hours I've been working away on these things, which they are like shackle holders. So they're gonna go right in here, and then I can put a shackle like so. They're still quite hot because I just finished welding them. So there you go, shackle holder. And they're going to tie in around the frame here, and then I'm gonna put 2 bolts through right here. And that way, if I ever wind up pulling someone out or needing to be pulled, and I have some kind of winch line or whatever to right here, it's going to be right around the very strongest part of this entire bumper, the least amount of torque being put on the center section. So And you know, they look pretty cool. They're pretty stout. I layered up 3 pieces of 3/16 here, drilled through all of them, so there's plenty of strength there. And yeah, now I just gotta weld it into place, and then we're gonna put another, the last piece on the bottom here.
It's lunchtime. Today on the menu, we're making super easy, healthy Mediterranean shrimp bowls. The base is just couscous, just chopping up some raw veggies, olives, frying up some shrimp in a pan, topping it all with the yogurt parsley sauce. Lunchtime.
All right. Nice. Thanks, son.
Cheers. Yummy? Do you like it?
And back to it.
So this morning I have been working away and making these like frame horn caps for the bumper. They go on the underside. I've drilled holes in them, and now I'm drilling a hole into the underside of the frame horn, which I'm going to tap, and then I can thread a 1/2-inch bolt through there. And I saw this trick on the internet a little while ago, and I think it's hilarious, but it works so good. Look at this. It's so much easier than underhand drilling. Oh my god. Gotta put some lubrication on there. Yeah, make sure don't wear up drill bits. Hey, like them apples. Okay, well, my arms are totally spent after drilling into the sides and tapping all these holes, but now the bumper is fully bolted in, which means it is time to start welding. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to weld up completely as many joints as I can on the center section of this bumper, so that as it cools it doesn't shift out of shape. Because as of course you heat and then it cools, it contracts, and I just want to make sure that when I pull this thing off and it's nice and cool, when I go to put it back on, it's the same shape, because otherwise it's just going to make more work for me. So let's go. Time to start welding.
Well, something just came in the mail that I'm really excited about, and it's gonna distract me. So welcome to ADHD side quests. Okay, I gotta get off this really high tailgate. So I've explained in the past, one of the small reasons that we got this truck is because of the lack of blind spots. As you can see, the visibility out of this cab is fantastic. Big windows, small pillars. It's really easy to see the outside world. However, we are going to be doing something to this truck that really obstructs our view out of it. In under a year's time, this whole back window is going to be blocked by a camper, and I'm no longer going to be able to see out my rear view. And believe me when I say this, Trying to back up in a small space when you can't see behind your vehicle is kind of lame. This happened to us all the time in Latin America with our old van. Meg would always have to get out and spot for me. So it was kind of fortuitous and lucky that when we got home from our trip, WolfBox reached out and said, hey, do you want to try out this G900 Pro? And I'm like, heck yes, I do. I have wanted to have a WolfBox in our vehicle ever since they hit the market. I finally get to install one and try it out. All right, first things first, let's see what's in the box. So this right here is the screen that you just snap onto your mirror. We got our car DC adapter, our GPS unit, and the very basic and easy to install rear view camera. All right, let's get to installing this thing. The WolfBox G900 Pro shoots in a continuous 4K on the front camera and 2.5K on the rear camera. It has a super night vision mode, voice control, 5.8G Wi-Fi, and onboard GPS for real-time speed and GPS location in the event of an incident. The actual screen itself is super easy to install and comes with a pre-installed micro SD card to store footage on. The small and inconspicuous camera can easily be installed just about anywhere you'd like it. And with only a few minutes of installation, you have yourself a continuous video image behind you. The 12-inch touchscreen is super easy to use, responsive to touch, and has a number of different settings to optimize your user experience. Now we can see exactly what's around us when going forwards and backwards, which I've got to tell you is a massive improvement from what we were doing before. No more backing into trees, worrying about people in my blind spot, and I can utilize all of the space given to me in a tight parking lot without using a spotter. The screen can be split as well in case you want to see both forwards and backwards while driving. I also love that I can see my speed from the GPS unit and our direction of travel. No more guessing on speed conversions when we're driving in the USA, and honestly, knowing what direction I'm going actually really helps when trying to navigate. And last but not least, I can spot all of the weirdos that hang out behind our truck. Well, that is that. A super easy and quick installation of the WolfBox G900 Pro. I'm pretty stoked to actually being able to see behind us. And of course, having that full-time rear view is just friggin' mint because I can get right up close when I'm backing up to stuff. I don't have to worry about those stupid blind spots made by a camper. And yeah, I can record, and now of course we have a recording dash cam, so if we ever have an accident, we're kind of backed up in terms of who done it. I've had a few times where I've had accidents that were not my fault, but there are no witnesses, and it resulted in going 50-50, and I had to pay more than I should have. So now I'm covered for those kinds of instances. So thanks for watching this little installation video on the G900 Pro from WolfBox. Let's get back to building.
All right, well, big success. Pretty good go on the first run of like really heavy duty welding. The little arc captain machine did a fantastic job. I'm just letting the center section cool right now. This is a bit of a patience game because I really don't want it to warp, and I've probably already put too much heat into it. But I'm going to show you some of these welds. Pretty proud of them. Not all of them are perfect, but they're pretty good, I think.
Would you just look at that?
A little bit too much build on the bottom one there, but I'm grinding all of that one down anyway, so not worried about it. But I know I got really good penetration in there. Had a nice big gap for all that weld to go into. This one I'm pretty proud of. Looks pretty sharp. It's too bad I'm grinding all of this down and rounding the corners, eh? Okay, so it looks like got all the beads that I could get. My dad here is going to help me pull this off. I think it's a pretty tight fit. Oh, wasn't that bad, actually. And that's not that heavy. Come on, baby. Easy. Well, I got quite a bit done yesterday. I've still got a few like small things to do before this bumper is going to be painted, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and we'll give you guys a look at the bumper once it is painted and mounted up. And then, yeah, that'll be the end of this one because I'm kind of running out of time here. I got to get this thing mounted, and we got to go be shooting the next video. Welcome to the life of a YouTuber. All right. I'm just gonna get working.
It's an exciting moment because the bumper has been all polished off. We've moved Jerry back. It's time to paint.
Hate painting. Hate painting.
But you're so good at it.
I like it.
Unfortunately, my patience game isn't that strong, and I did manage to put a little bit too much heat into the bumper while welding it. This managed to warp it just enough that it made reinstallation a challenge, but we did get it eventually. I often say to myself after finishing a bumper that I never want to do it again, but I think this build was actually quite fun, and I'm quite proud of the end result. It looks really good, it's really functional, it's pretty darn straight actually, and yeah, it makes the truck look like it's ready to go overlanding or something.
Well, there you go, folks. I know it's a bit of an unceremonious ending to this video, but Jerry's bumper is all finished up, and I am out of time. I have to get on to other projects, which we will be starting immediately. And in the next video, I'm going to treat you guys to a little bit of accessorizing, which means lights, winch, and some nice changes to the front end of Jerry so that you don't have to look at his kind of trashy exterior. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of how this bumper turned out in the end. It's maybe a tad bit sporty than I would have liked, but I think it does have a pretty good balance of like utilitarian and sporty, so it kind of, you know, it's well-rounded, I guess. I think we're going to be jumping into some body work possibly, or maybe sliders in the next video, whenever that happens. So thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around to watch this entire video. I hope you guys enjoyed the kind of first official Alex Build Stuff show. I know the one previous was kind of a get warmed up kind of video, but I had to do it. You have to pay for this kind of stuff, and yeah, lots of sponsorship, as you guys have already seen. So, all right, catch you in the next one. Thanks for being here. Later.